Raju, please monitor the smiles.
Yes, sir. We have a good number of people smiling.
Okay, very good. We are going to talk about pain. That doesn't mean that we have to be in pain right at the moment.
Right.
Okay, about pain. Raju, can I share my screen?
Yes, sir. You can.
Sorry about that. Please bear with me just a moment. Next, next, please. Ladies and gentlemen, you all have got this book. If not a physical copy, you have got a soft copy of the Indian Primer of Palliative Care. Those who have not downloaded it yet, please do. And Raju, do I understand correctly that if they send their correspondence address, a hard copy will be sent to them?
Yes, sir. It will be sent to them, sir.
So anybody who has not sent in the correspondence address, postal address, please do it at the earliest. Anyway, you have this now. You have access to this as a soft copy. And where we talk about pain, that is in page 67. You will see Chennaiya's story. I'm going to talk about Chennaiya, who has advanced cancer, the buccal mucosa. He is in pain. His expression shows how much pain he has. Now, today, we are going to try to understand his pain so that we can treat it effectively. Next, please. I don't know how many of you have had a serious pain experience in your life. Many of us would not have. Okay, we would have undergone, many of us have gone through pain of surgery, a labor pain. Many pains can be severe. I'm not saying that they were not severe, but I'm also saying that pain can be beyond all that. A man who says, I feel like somebody putting a nail into my ear and hammering, as I told you on the first day, you can't imagine that kind of pain. So remember, when somebody has that kind of pain, they change. They no longer care about their loved ones. They no longer care about anything else. They can be unkind. Their behavior changes. Yeah, next one, Narun. This is how the International Association for Study of Pain defines pain. This is today's official definition of pain. I've shown some parts of it boldly. That is, it's unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with or resembling that associated with actual or potential tissue damage. We don't want to go to all that confusion now. But most important point, that is next one, is that expression. It is not only a sensation, it's an emotional experience. You cannot expect the emotional factors not to affect the pain experience. The same headache that you have when comfortably at home and somebody rubbing your forehead with love can be a totally different experience when you are far away somewhere, when you are alone, when you are terrified that you may be dying. Is this a cerebral hemorrhage? You start wondering. The pain experience can be worse. That is true. But if the emotional experience affects pain, that doesn't mean that the sensory experience is not there. They are complementary, one worsens the other. Next, please. Now, in the bottom panel, I have shown a super simplified pain pathway. On the one side, we have Chennaiya's peripheral nerve, the nerve ending, from which pain is transmitted as an electrical impulse across the peripheral nerve, depending on the site, either to the dorsal horn of the spinal cord or to the brain. In the brain, say for face and head, it's a trigeminal nerve. It goes to the trigeminal ganglion, which is at the lower level of the brain. And from there, when the pain reaches the thalamus and the brain, you appreciate the pain. I still mention the dorsal horn of the spinal cord and the trigeminal ganglion because that's where the impulse can get modified. Is this clear? I've added a line at the bottom. Reflex responses occur at the lower level. When you have a very bad low back pain, you twist. That's because of motor reflexes. Your muscles contract. When you have a pain, the blood vessels of that area constrict. That's a reflex response. So remember, reflex responses can occur at the spinal level or at the trigeminal ganglion. Pain is appreciated in the thalamus and cortex. I'm not going to the details. Today, no intention to go to the pain receptors and various kinds of receptors, etc. We are trying to keep this as simple as possible so that we understand enough how pain can be treated. Shall I stop there for a second for anybody's question? Somebody said the name of the book is not clear. It is the Indian Primer of Palliative Care. As Raju has noticed in the chat box, it was sent as learning materials. The link was sent on the first day. Okay, any question? If not, I am going back to the PowerPoint. I don't know. Is the screen shared?
So we do have a question, sir.
Does severe pain serve any useful purpose? Anita, an important question. There is. I'm going to take a minute to answer that question. Essentially, pain is protective. Pain tells you run away, save yourself. And severe pain tells you it is a major problem, run away now. Unfortunately, in modern life, you cannot run away. So, an agonizing pain, it's an exaggeration of the normal protective response. And in one word answer to Anita's question is no. A pain like what Chennaiya has serves no useful purpose. Remember, initially Chennaiya's pain served a useful purpose when it was starting. It told Chennaiya, hey, there is something wrong. Go to the hospital, get the proper treatment. That warning was useful. But because he could not get away from the pain, currently it is not useful. Thank you for the question, Anita. Different people have different threshold for pain. Agnes, We already mentioned that pain is a sensory and emotional experience. The sensation part, the best of our knowledge, has no difference in the pain threshold. For everybody, it's the same. Sensory part. The emotional part is different. As soon as there's a small ache, somebody start crying and gets very much upset, whereas Agnes may just shake the shoulder and walk away. That's our emotional reaction to it. As far as we know, for the sensory part of it, the threshold is the same for people. Except there are very rare genetic conditions where somebody is born without the pain sensation. And because it doesn't protect them, they don't live. Generally, people without pain die within 3 to 4 years of age of multiple injuries, burns, etc. Okay, Arun, let us move on. So, to repeat, when the impulses reach the brain, you feel the pain. I'm sorry about the noise outside. We are celebrating democracy. Our Kerala elections are coming on the 6th. I have no control over this. The noise factor will be there. I don't go to the next slide. Now, why am I saying all this? I'm not going to talk in detail about pain management today. That will come later. But this understanding the mechanism, I don't know, am I still audible despite the noise?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Paracetamol, two things that you commonly use. Let me take examples, paracetamol and ibuprofen, brufen or diclofenac, one of those things. Paracetamol has a predominant central action in the brain, whereas drugs like NSAIDs have a peripheral action. So, in cancer pain, would paracetamol have any role? Is paracetamol useful in cancer pain? Yes, the answer is given in the slide itself.
Yes.
It can lay a foundation. If you use paracetamol, then the dose of morphine can be lesser, drowsiness with morphine may be lower. So paracetamol, remember, has a central action, whereas next one, I don't. Here I have a question to you. Suppose Chennaiya's stimulus here was constant. It was not increasing, it was not reducing. What would happen to the pain? Would it remain constant, or would it decrease, or would it increase? What's your answer?
Decrease.
Increase, says Deepam.
Decrease.
I heard only the crease. Decrease or increase?
Decrease.
Deepti, what you said is true for the mildest pains. Like what I mentioned, that slight shoulder pain. You just rub the shoulder. Hey, it cannot be anything serious. And you emotionally adapt to it. But think about Chennaiya's pain. The stimulus is severe, and what will the body do? Body is very efficient. It will tell Chennaiya, run away, escape by giving more and more pain. So while Deepti's answer is correct for a mildest pain with which you can emotionally cope, for any serious pain, like Chennaiya's pain, it will increase. I will tell you how exactly it will increase. I'm glad you gave your comments, because understanding this is crucial to understanding pain management. Chennaiya with the same tumor would have X pain last week. This week his pain will be 2x, 3x, and it will go on rising. Let me explain how. Arun, next one. One thing, You see the nerve endings, they themselves increase in number. I told you, Deepthi, about your shoulder pain. It's only mild. It is more or less okay. You leave it alone, and in between it troubles you, but it's not much. But with Chennaiya, there is more and more stimulus. So the body tells Chennaiya, hey, you are in trouble. Body creates silent or sleepy nodes that are getting activated. They are already there. Normally they have no function, but they get activated. And the nerve endings are also sensitized. So the same stimulus tomorrow will cause more of electrical impulses. If it causes 10 impulses today, next week they will cause the same stimulus will have 100 impulses. So sensitization and nociceptors is a problem. Hey, is there anything we can do about it? What can we do about it? Can we reduce the
Anesthetize that area?
very good, Girija. Absolutely. If you anesthetize, yes. And anesthetists do this. You put in an epidural for the first 2 days. Even thereafter, the pain relief is much better. That is true. But Girija, you are an anesthetist?
No, I'm a dermatologist.
Okay. So we superior beings like anesthetists can do that. What else can we do for Chennai? Any other medicine? Tell me, how do NSAIDs work? Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, how do they work?
Decrease the production of the prostaglandins.
Well, certainly it inhibits the prostaglandins, whether it's by reducing production or decreasing its effect. What it certainly does is it causes diminished action of prostaglandins at the nerve endings.
Radha!
The sensitization and recruitment of the nerve ending is diminished when prostaglandins get inhibited. So prostaglandin inhibition may be the best way of achieving the desensitization and reducing the recruitment of the nociceptors. I don't, next please. So prostaglandin inhibition is something that we can try. Remember, we already mentioned how paracetamol can help Chennai, and now we are saying how NSAID can help. At the level of the receptor, NSAIDs can help. Next, please. If you I am not going to the details of the ladder. The ladder has 3 steps. The first step is non-opioid with adjuvants. In the subsequent session, somebody will talk to you about these. But for the time being, I am saying that even paracetamol and ibuprofen and other NSAIDs may have a role to play. As you discuss management later, we will go deeper into it or higher up in the ladder. Next, please. There are more things that happen. Adjacent spinal segments or areas of the brain get recruited, so that the area of pain also increases. You all have you people seen somebody who comes to say you and say, my whole body is in pain? Dr. Veena, are you talking to us? If you are not talking to us, please mute your microphone. Or somebody else. If you are talking to us, please unmute and speak. Anybody else? Anybody? Dr. Veena is saying something, but you are muted. You can see your lip movement. So, again, if the area of pain increases, gradually Chennaiya may say, my pain is, he may this week say pain is here. Next month he may say, my whole body is in pain. And that's the effect of recruitment. I don't next one. But something more happens. That's the principle of wind up or central sensitization. It's called the wind up because it is like winding up a spring, tight, making it very tight. The dorsal horn of the spinal cord or the corresponding area in the trigeminal ganglion gets so sensitized. Do you know what happens now? If one impulse
Touch will
goes from here.
feel as pain.
Yes, sorry, Nish.
Touch will feel as pain. For a change in wind, feel as pain.
That will also happen, Nishi. You are absolutely right. But what I was about to say was, if today one impulse goes from here and 10 impulses go to the brain, next month, when it is sensitized, there will be 100 impulses going to the brain. That's part of it, what happens. But Nishi is correct. When the impulses keep continuing to rise from here, it is like a traffic jam. So many impulses come up, and the dorsal horn the cell gets all confused. By any chance, ladies and gentlemen, do you remember that description in physiology? Laminar arrangement of cells in the dorsal horn. So there are areas for touch, there is another area for pain, etc. As Nishi says, all that that's a functional demarcation. All that is gone. The brain, the dorsal horn becomes one mass of impulses. No more difference between touch and pain. Even if you touch, it also gets appreciated as pain. That's called allodynia. So Nishi, absolutely correct. Allodynia can also occur, but one consistent thing that will happen is there will be continuous stream of impulses. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry about all that pathophysiology, complicated things. I'm glad you were with me. I'm glad that we understood that with any serious pain, if continued without treatment, pain will gradually keep on increasing, and it can increase beyond the imagination of you or I. So why did I say that? So what does it tell you about management? Based on this, what do you understand about management? What impact can it have in the management? Anybody? I don't. Next one. Next. I don't.
Blocking dorsal horn.
I don't. Next one. Sorry.
Block the dorsal root ganglion.
That, Nishi, dorsal root ganglion, I mean, that sensitization can be partially blocked by giving an NMDA antagonist like ketamine. On another day, maybe a few weeks away, we will come back to this. But I don't. Next one. The most important lessons to be learned is that treat the pain early as possible. Except for previous mild shoulder pain, anything that is significant should be treated early. Early treatment means less pain, which is why anesthetists sometimes use preemptive analgesia. They put in the local anesthetic before the surgery, and then postoperatively also pain is less. Treat pain early is the main message. Secondly, Chenna's pain is continuous. We should not allow pain to come back, cause sensitization and recruitment. In all continuous pains, give medicines by the clock, depending on duration of action. Depending on duration of action of the medicine. Okay, got the message? Treat pain early. In all continuous pains, give medicines by the clock. Vasudha, multimodal approach is a very good idea, and that is what is recommended by ASP. Certainly, it is not only one medicine, it will be a combination of several methods. And when you discuss pain management on another day, you will be going into this. I don't, next please. I've already told you that pain management must be by the clock. Here is a chart. What do you think? Paracetamol usually is prescribed by everybody, all physicians, TID. So if you are using it for pain management, is that the appropriate duration of action?
No, it should be PID.
Thank you, Dr. Saleh. 6 hourly, absolutely, very
Sure.
good. Ibuprofen?
It
BED,
can be 8 hourly. 8 hourly.
Yeah, 6 to 8 hourly, very good. Tramadol?
BD.
TDS, tramadol, TDS.
Only
It depends.
sustained, Dr. Kale, if it is sustained release tramadol, it's
Sorry.
right. But otherwise, tramadol acts only for 6 to 8 hours. If it is sustained release preparation, twice daily is okay. If not, it has to be 3 to 4 times. And morphine, immediate release ordinary morphine.
4th hour.
4 hourly.
I don't, next one. So, except for sustained release morphine in the last column, which may be 12 hourly, if it is immediate release, these would be the duration of action. Let us advocate for 6 hourly paracetamol, at least 3 times a day, ibuprofen and tramadol, and morphine 4 hourly for continuous pains. Next, please. Pain caused by stimulation of the nociceptor is nociceptive pain. Whereas, if pain is caused by abnormal impulse generation anywhere in the nervous system, that is neuropathic pain. Chennai's pain in the buccal mucosa is nociceptive. There is a tumor irritating the nerve endings. But if Chennai's tumor has infiltrated the sensory fibers of the nerves, that will also cause a neuropathic pain.
Right.
Give me another example of a neuropathic pain.
Severe uncontrolled
POVD.
diabetes.
POVD having
Uh,
exclusive vascular disease.
okay. Nishi, very good. Thank you. I'll park that. Somebody else said something else. What was that?
That was a new herpes.
Herpes
Herpes.
zoster. Herpes zoster
Yes.
not in the acute phase, but post-herpetic neuralgia.
Post-herpetic.
It remains for almost a month.
Post-herpetic neuralgia can be
Yes.
for lifetime, and it can keep on worsening. And
Sure.
while herpes or acute herpes zoster would also cause nociceptive pain,
Yes.
post-herpetic neuralgia is completely a neuropathic pain.
Yes.
And Shilpa Khanna says phantom limb pain. Yes, absolutely. Now we know that its origin is in the brain. Diabetic neuropathy, Sonam, absolutely. Diabetic neuropathy is neuropathic pain. Post-chemo neuropathy, trigeminal neuralgia. These are all examples of neuropathic pain. But also remember that many pains can be a combination, like Chennai's pain. Chennai has a lesion here. The sensory nerves are very superficial, and often the tumor eats into the nerve. So there is a combination of both nociceptive and neuropathic pains, and you have to remember that this has to be treated appropriately by a combination of treatment for both. Today we are not going to the treatment, but you today I would very much like you to understand a little bit about how to diagnose a neuropathic pain. Arun? I have given 3 features there. Unfortunately, there is no diagnostic test. No MRI can tell you what kind of pain it is. Nerve conduction studies will not give you a good idea. The only diagnosis is by the symptomatology. Neuropathic pain causes a certain quality of pain. If somebody say, oh, Nishi, you mentioned disc prolapse and neuropathy. Nishi, you mentioned that?
Dr. Nishi, you are muted.
Yeah, it's okay.
Peripheral occlusive vascular disease
No,
causing
I am specifically asking about disc prolapse and sciatica.
neuropathy.
As I mean, those people who have felt it in this group, there must be some people. They would tell us that it is a shooting pain very often, like an electric shock going down the leg. But it can also be in postoperative neuralgia, it's very often burning. So that nature of the pain is one feature. And distribution is an area of distribution of a nerve. Nishi, in peripheral vascular disease, it's a combination. It's predominantly nociceptive. The ischemia causes chemicals to be liberated from the nerves, which stimulates the nociceptors. But because the nerves are also not getting enough blood supply, it also has a nociceptive, a neuropathic element. So distribution in an area of distribution of a nerve, you know what is Panco's tumor? Cancer of the upper lobe of the lung. When it involves the brachial plexus, where do you have pain? In the area of distribution of the brachial plexus, upper limb. There's no pathology there, the upper limb is in pain. In your disc prolapse, lumbar disc prolapse, the pain is in the sciatic nerve distribution. In diabetic neuropathy, because it's peripheral nerves, it is a glove and stocking distribution, and so on. And was it who told me about Nishi? You told me in the beginning that when there is sensitization of the dorsal horn cell, touch may be perceived as pain, allodynia. But allodynia is not the only abnormal sensation. It can be total confusion. Many pains can be exaggerated, like hyperalgesia, hyperpathia, allodynia. But strangely, it can also be hypoesthesia or anesthetic patches even. Typically, somebody with a post-stroke pain, yes, Vasudha, hyperalgesia, absolutely. Post-stroke pain. He has no sensation on one side of the body. No sensation. But he complains of burning pain all over the limb, all over one side of the body. So you will look for burning, shooting, etc., quality of the pain, distribution of the pain, and abnormal sensation in the area of pain. These are the only ways in which clinically you can suspect neuropathic pain. You cannot establish neuropathic pain, and when you suspect it, we may have to give the appropriate medication, those for the adjuvants in the step 1, which you will come to on another day. Arun? So when you assess somebody's pain, none of us is likely to be a somebody with a photographic memory. We see many patients. Patient comes and tells you about 3 different kinds of pain. When you see the patient next month, will you remember what the patient told you first? If you are a human being, you are likely to forget. I know there are some super brains here, but most of us forget. Therefore, it's very important to document it. Your case sheet should have a chart like this. We have in our institution. We'll be glad to share it with you. Raju, Arun, please get the electronic case record from Shreya and share it with the whole group. So we use a body chart. So if the patient says, I have an aching pain in the back, but also a shooting pain down the leg, I'll mark it on the diagram so that next week I'll know exactly where it is. But these are the various elements that I look for. What causes the pain? They may say, when I get up and walk, the pain increases. What relieves the pain? They may say, cold. When I apply cold, it's better. Then I suspect that there may be an inflammation there. They may say, when I apply heat, it becomes better. I mean, that may indicate to me that there may be a muscle spasm. Quality of the pain, what I said earlier, aching, burning, shooting, etc. Radiation, shooting down the leg. It starts in the tummy, but then I feel it in the tip of the shoulder. They are all examples of radiation. Site, the site of the pain is what we will mark on the chart. Use your pen or pencil, mark it on the chart. And if the person, as I said, complains of 3 different pains, he may say aching pain here. I'll mark it there and mark it as 1. He may say pain going down the leg. I mark it as pain number 2, down the leg. He has also a headache, pain number 3. And for each, I will mark the severity. Severity typically is assessed on a 0 to 10 scale. If that's not the only scale, that's called a numerical rating scale. 0 to 10 scale is not the visual analog scale. Not going to the visual analog scale here. What we practically use most often is numerical rating scale. What is 0? 0 is no pain. What is 10? Anybody? What is 10?
Severe pain.
Severe most pain.
Severe. I think we'll have to be specific.
Intolerable.
10, no, not enough. 10 is the worst imaginable pain. It's not what we have experienced, it's what we imagine. Say that 10 is the worst imaginable pain. 0 is no pain. How much pain do you have? Now, each of you has gone through some pain experience. Some have low back pain, some have a shoulder pain, some get migraine, some get other tension, headache. How much pain is yours? And that understanding that will help you to get that rating scale from the patient. I will write it down on the file here. Okay, aching pain in the low back, 5. Shooting pain down the leg, 9. Headache, 2, whatever the patient says. But only one person can assess the severity of the scale, pain, and that is the patient. You cannot write it down because you think it's 8. Unless a patient says it's 8, you cannot write it down. Otherwise, just say patient says it's severe. And we'll also check the time of the pain. When does it happen? How long does it last? Okay, next one. And that is P, Q, R, S, S, T. And one more I'll add. So what's the impact of the pain? What does the pain mean for the patient? Okay, to demonstrate that, Arun, will you show the video, please?
Yes, sir, sure.
That's a 5 minutes video, ladies and gentlemen, where one of my colleagues, Dr. Nirmala, is interviewing a patient.
Savitri, I want to find out more about your pain. Can you tell me exactly where you feel the pain?
It is all over my body. My whole body is in pain, doctor. But you do not believe that, do you?
Of course, I believe you, Savitri. I know pain can behave like that. But is there some place where it is worst?
Well, it is worst on my low back, especially when I move sideways.
Arun, can you pause it for a minute?
Now,
I asked Arun to pause the video, ladies and gentlemen, because you see what Dr. Nirmala has done. She has acknowledged the pain. When somebody says my whole body is in pain, very often the response of the doctor is, oh, come on, here is another head case, supracortical lesion. First principle of pain management is start by believing the patient. We believe the patient. Even if we do not understand the pain, we start by believing the patient. So Arun, in between, I may ask you to stop like this. Okay, restart it, please.
My whole body is in pain.
Okay, take a look at this picture. Can you show me where your pain is the worst? Could you shade the area for me?
Well, doctor, it is worst here. Over here it is worst.
And then you said the whole body. Do you have the same pain all over the body?
No, doctor. I don't have any pain on my head.
Okay.
But for the rest of my body, it is in severe pain.
Is this the same all over the body? Can you give it a lighter shade where the pain is less than the pain in your back?
Sure.
I don't pause. Now you see, if the patient can shade it, that's fine. Most of the time we do it for the patient. They just show us, we may draw it for them if they are not comfortable to do it by themselves. But you see what Savitri has done. She was asked patiently to mark the area where the pain is worst, and she is showing an area of pain that is worst in the low back over the pelvic bone, and then a shooting pain, possibly a pain going down the leg to the toe, and then a lesser pain all over the body. Okay, Arun, restart, please.
Good. Now we understand a bit more about your pain. But please tell me, what kind of pain is it? Burning, shooting, aching, something like that?
Well, I have a terrible ache on my low back. And there's a pain shooting down my left leg, right up to the toes. And it becomes worse when I move sideways.
Okay.
And if you touch my low back, there's a severe burning sensation. It is as if someone has applied chili powder all over it.
You said your pain shoots down your leg. Does it move anywhere else?
No, not that pain.
Okay. Look at this scale. This scale has got marks from 0 to 10. Here 0 means no pain and 10 means the worst imaginable pain. Now on this scale, can you give your pain a number?
Well, doctor, it is 10, doctor. It is always at its worst.
Or is it 10, some point, somewhere?
It is 10 whenever the pain shoots down the leg.
And on your back?
Sometimes 8, sometimes 7.
And the rest of your body?
Oh, it is really bad, doctor. It is usually 7.
Is there some time of the day when your pain is worse than other times?
It is worst at night.
Is there
Pause.
anything that makes your...
So you heard the doctor ask about the quality of pain, the severity of the pain on 0 to 10 score. Every patient may not be able to tell you that. The majority will tell you. Some people say, I don't know all that. I can't think. I have severe pain. That's okay. We will not push it. We'll just write. We won't write 7 there or 10. We'll say the patient has severe pain, is unable to score. And now the doctor is asking about the time factor. At what time? And the patient says it worst at night. Remember, almost all pains are worse at night. When there is no distraction, when you are alone with the pain, it feels worst. Okay, Arun, please start.
Pain better?
Not anymore, doctor. Earlier, massage used to help. I used to take those tablets, but now I don't anymore because of the kidney problem. Whenever my pain is severe, I take some paracetamol tablets, but they don't help anymore.
Is there anything that makes your pain worse?
Yes, doctor. Whenever I move sideways, the pain is severe. Sometimes any movement is an agony, and it is worst in cold season.
Savitri, how has the pain affected your daily life?
I don't have a life, doctor. I even dread going to the toilet. That would be much better than a life like this.
It's that bad, isn't it? Would you like to tell me more about it? Has the pain affected you emotionally and socially? Has it affected your family relationships?
So, ladies and gentlemen, you saw an evaluation of pain. PFOS were provoking and palliating factors. Nirmala came to that last. All the various elements of that PQRST were elicited. And as a final point, Nirmala, this is very important. Nirmala asked, how has it affected your life? She said, I don't have a life. And when Nirmala asked, has it affected your relationships? She started crying. With more severe pains, relationships are affected. When you are in pain, you know that. Each one of you know that when you have a headache or something, you are irritable. You are likely to snap at everybody. You may not snap at your boss, but you snap at your children. You snap at your spouse. And sometimes when you are angry, you say things that cannot be taken back. So the impact on relationships can be significant in long-standing pains. And if it is cancer, everybody gets some empathy. Whereas if it's somebody with a low back pain, nobody is empathetic to them. They seem all right. They eat well, all the time complaining, not doing any work. People are irritated with them. Okay, Arun, next slide, please. I know that I have exceeded time. I'm sorry I lost some time in the beginning. Next, please. So I'll start by pointing out that pain is a personal experience that is influenced by varying degrees of biological, psychological, and social factors. And one or two messages I leave with you. The first is, believe the person about the pain. Don't start by disbelieving them. Two, recognize that it's an emotional experience also. Patient has a right to be emotionally affected. That doesn't mean that the pain is not real. Third, treat pain early. And finally, in all continuous pains, give analgesics by the clock. And I'm sorry, I forgot who wrote it. Very often, treatment has to be multi-modal. It cannot be just one way of treating it. Maybe some counseling, some massage, some application of heat, some physiotherapy, all may go together. Whereas in cancer pains, predominantly it will be pharmacotherapy. I have exceeded time, but we still have a few minutes for discussion. Will you stop sharing, please? You remember that I also classified pain into stems to nociceptive and neuropathic. I did not make a distinction between acute and chronic pain. Chronic non-cancer pains will not be visible very often. People have understood by experience that people are not sympathetic, so they hide it in public life. In acute pain, sympathetic responses are more, whereas in long-standing pain like Chennaiya's, sympathetic responses may not be there. Another classification, I am not going into all classifications because I don't want to overload with too much of information on this day. Can I take any questions?
If you give round the clock analysis, will the kidney function and everything will go there?
You see, of the various analgesics that we mentioned, paracetamol, NSAIDs, and opioids, which all will affect the kidney?
NSAID and NSAID,
Only NSAID.
paracetamol, tramadol, opiates.
No, not paracetamol, not tramadol. Paracetamol has a predominant central effect. In clinical doses, has no effect on peripherally. Therefore, it does not affect the kidney. Paracetamol is quite safe. And the opioids, all opioids,
Opioids
they may act longer in kidney failure, but they do not cause kidney damage. And NSAIDs, if you have to use it, we will not go into that today. You will have a session on that. We will learn how to use, how not to use NSAIDs when it's risky, and when we use it, how to use it safely. But that is for another day.
Sir, if you keep giving patient drugs for drugs to relieve pain, will the patient ultimately develop tolerance to pain and tolerance to the drugs?
Deepti, that's a very, very common question. And let me answer that by saying that there is no tolerance to paracetamol. By the way, I'm sure everybody knows, but in case somebody has forgotten at the moment, tolerance means diminishing diminishing response to the medicine with time. There is no tolerance to paracetamol. There is no tolerance to NSAIDs. There is no practical purposes. There is no tolerance to opioids. So one word answer is don't be afraid of tolerance. Treat pain effectively. Now, why I said made a clause about opioids is there we could prove that there is a very, very small level of tolerance to opioids, but it is not clinically significant. And in 2019, one of my patients died in Calicut after 16 years of opioids. 16 years he was on 100 milligrams of morphine 4 hourly. He had a slow growing malignancy. It was a constant dose and he had it till his death. And we see this. If the dose increases, that's because the tumor grows. Arya, I'm glad you asked the question about paracetamol. Next week, when they talk about management of pain, it will be brought up. And I would please remind me to share share an article with them. Arya, paracetamol limited to 12 to 15 milligram per kg 4 hourly. That is limited to 4 grams a day. Does not harm the liver. Limited to 4 grams a day does not harm the liver. The dose that causes hepatic failure is usually double that, 8 grams or more. Liver failure occurs in the Western countries very often when people swallow it for committing suicide. They can't buy every medicine over the counter. So deprived community, they have to, what they have in their bathroom cupboard is paracetamol. They swallow that and get hepatic failure. So limited to 12 to 15 milligram per kg 6 hourly, it will not cause liver failure. Deepam, amitriptyline, will it help? So that will come in the management of Deepam. when we talk about neuropathic pains, we will see that amitriptyline becomes a first-line drug as among the adjuvants. In pure nociceptive pains, amitriptyline may have theoretically an effect, but it's not a practical significance. So if you are talking about a post-operative pain or a post-traumatic pain, it would have no role. But for Chennai, because it's a combination of nociceptive and neuropathic pain, there will be a role for it. Vasudha Magil's pain questionnaire is something that we use mostly for research. It's a bit complicated for practical use every day, so we generally keep it simple. If you start doing anything complicated, I can assure you, it stops after the first 6 months. Let us keep the monitoring of pain as simple as possible. Wait a minute, I have exceeded time. We have a case presentation to do. So unless there is a burning question that is still remaining there, we will move forward.
Can I ask one question, sir?
Your last question. Yes.
Yeah, yes, sir. Sir, in our OPD, mostly patients come with osteoarthritis.
Yes.
And in such cases, what kind of pain management can you do? Because chronically, every week they will come and ask for analgesic. So, can we give paracetamol like this? It's fine.
Maria, I think please keep your question with you, because after we have discussed the management in the next 2 sessions, this can be dealt with. But one word answer, let me give you. What's our objective? In your mind, have your objective clear. This is not about the patient coming to OP alone. This is also about your grandmother who is always complaining of knee pain.
Yes.
So objective is that she should have or he should have a comfortable life, as safe as possible. Sometimes, even in the elderly, we may have to use NSAIDs with all the precautions. Certainly not as a first line. The objective is quality of life. I've also seen patients who are denied pain relief in osteoarthritis, and what I see after 2 years is somebody with contractures and pressure sores because they are unable to move. So it's a balance between quality of life and pain management. So Arya will postpone answering the proper question properly till we have discussed the next 2 sessions of management.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Is Arun, is Sunil with us?
No, sir.
Okay. Arun, will you stop sharing? And you have stopped sharing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Shall we go on to the case presentation? Who is doing it, Arun? Anita. Okay. Chandana. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Parikar. Anita, all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear my voice?
We can hear you, Dr. Anita.
Can you also see me?
We can see you, and I'm glad that a pediatrician is with us, because children's pain is most often ignored. Children's pain is very little treated. I'm glad you are here, Dr. Anita.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to present the case. I'm a pediatrician based in Secunderabad.
Okay.
Next slide. I have this case of an elderly woman who's 82 years old with a diagnosis of post-herpetic neuralgia. Next slide, please. The presenting complaints are severe pain on the right side of the stomach and back of 3 weeks duration, insomnia of the same time, and decreased appetite and constipation of 2 weeks duration. Next, please. It all started about a month ago when she found a little pain, burning pain on the right side of the stomach, extending up to the back. After about 2 or 3 days, she noticed that the skin had become little pinkish and she developed a rash in the same area. She describes the rash as like drops of water on rose petals. At that time, she went to the doctor who gave some tablets for about 7 days. She duly took the medication and the rash disappeared after 7 days. However, the story did not end there. She developed severe, continuous burning pain in the same area. It became so severe that it interfered with her activities of daily living as well as disrupted her sleep. There is no history of trauma or fall, and she does not have any past history of any malignancy or of any immunosuppression. In the last 2 weeks, she also has decreased appetite along with constipation. On examination, patient is conscious, coherent, well-oriented. She looks anxious and she covers the painful area with a piece of cloth because she is not able to dress properly. Touching of the cloth on the area causes severe pain. Her vitals such as pulse rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation are all normal. Systemic examination is normal except that there is severe pain on touching of that area. So a clinical diagnosis of post-herpetic neuralgia is made. Next, the treatment that she received so far was acyclovir 800 milligrams 5 times a day for 7 days at the onset of rash. And the last 3 weeks, she has been prescribed tablet gabapentin 300 milligrams twice a day, along with topical capsaicin cream. Next, please. Psychosocial history. She is a wealthy 82-year-old woman. She recently lost her husband 4 months ago to myocardial infarction. She lives with a loving, supportive family, which has her son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren. She also belongs to a spiritual group which meets every week and does chanting. But because of this illness, she is very upset with God. She is even questioning the presence of God. And she says, "Oh God, why me? Why have you given me so much suffering now?" Next, please. So the medications have already gone through. Acyclovir for the rash for 7 days, and presently gabapentin and capsaicin. Next, please. Her main concerns are, doctor, is this a life-threatening illness? You think I'm going to die of this illness? Or how long will this agony last? Can you please do something to reduce the pain to a bearable level at least? So these are the pleas. To summarize, we have an 82-year-old wealthy widow with severe post-herpetic neuralgia involving the right T10 segment. The pain relief given is inadequate. In addition, we have insomnia, constipation, and anxiety. Next. So I think we need to discuss a few questions. What more drugs can be added to reduce the pain? And apart from the pain, apart from the drugs, can non-drug methods such as TENS, ultrasound, or CBT be useful? And should complementary therapies such as acupuncture be also recommended? Next. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Anita, when you were about to start a presentation, I thought you were going to talk about a child, you being a pediatrician.
I too thought the same thing. Talking about the most elderly. Anyway, can I answer?
This happened to be my mother who went through this. This is a very personal case history that I presented.
Dr. Anita, we are sorry to hear that. This is not an easy thing. So how long is it that since your mom had post-herpetic neuralgia?
Oh, it lasted for some years, sir. And of course, she's no more now. She passed away. But it
Uh,
lasted for few years.
So, Dr. Kale, you wanted to say something. Please
Yes,
give
sir.
me a minute to summarize. So,
Okay.
Dr. Anita, it will still be left as a painful memory
Yes.
with you forever. What you described was your mom getting postherpetic neuralgia and going into total pain. She was anxious. How long is it going to last? I don't know if she was depressed, but she was certainly, it affected her social life. She
Yes.
could no longer go to the chanting sessions because she couldn't even wear clothes properly.
Yes.
And she was questioning her faith.
Yes.
What kind of God are you? I mean, she may not voice it. If you do things like this to me, I never harmed anybody. I lived a good life. Why me? That kind of things. So, ladies and gentlemen, all of you are likely to come up with this kind of issue. Unfortunately, postherpetic neuralgia is something that is usually treated very inadequately. One of the medicines that was used, gabapentin, was possibly useful. It was used in a dose of 300 milligram twice a day, that is 600 milligram, which would be generally inadequate in the context of postherpetic neuralgia, where the requirement may be something like 1800 milligrams upwards. But then that kind of high doses may not be tolerated. I would also like you to remember something. The World Health Organization, when it described the cancer pain guidelines in 2019, took away gabapentin and pregabalin because the evidence against these medicines were falsified, and all over the world, based on wrong evidence, the drugs are promoted. But leave that alone. Everybody here has to remember postherpetic neuralgia. Best results are if you treat the pain in 3 months. Up to 6 months, it can be completely reversible. But if it is 2 years, I mean more than 6 months, complete resolution of the pain may be impossible. Remember that anybody over 40 years, below 40 years, usually postherpetic neuralgia doesn't happen. But the older you are, the more severe the neuralgia is likely to be. It has to be aggressively treated. Are there any dermatologists in this group?
Yes, there are.
Yes, I'm a dermatologist.
Yes.
Madam, so you must be seeing this kind of thing.
Yes,
And
we see.
yeah, so here aggressive treatment is necessary. So let me tell you what the various things that could be tried. Fortunately, this was intercostal. Sorry, not fortunately, it didn't benefit her. So I shouldn't use that word. But an intercostal nerve block, just as immediate measure, would take away the pain completely for a few hours. And if on alternate days you give about 5 days, very often if that is done in the first 3 months, the pain relief may last forever. Among the medicines, I will put in amitriptyline first. 82 years, I would start with a small dose, like 10 or 12.5 milligram at bedtime. I will use amitriptyline, whatever be the dose, only once a day at bedtime. I will not give it in the morning when it is more likely to cause drowsiness. I will tend to give it earlier in the evening, like 7 o'clock or so that they can wake up in the morning. I will increase the amitriptyline gradually every week, if necessary, up to 75 milligrams or even 100 milligrams. Very often, that will solve the problem. NSAIDs are totally useless. Opioids usually are not necessary. Multimodal treatment with amitriptyline. And if she was already on pregabalin, almost everybody is on gabapentin or pregabalin before they come to us. I will continue that and add small dose of amitriptyline and build it up. And if a nerve block procedure can be tried, it may only with only local anesthetic usually, but that causes a sustained effect. But if 6 months is already gone, we would still go ahead with the treatment. Even if the pain is not completely relieved, usually you can relieve it partially and make life livable. So post-herpetic neuralgia is something that, except for the dermatologist, most of us see only once in 5 years, but it is something that needs to be aggressively treated. I'm sorry, my camera, my screen has blanked out. So I can't see who is speaking. Who is the dermatologist, madam? Can you tell me your name?
Dr.
Sorry?
Girija, Dr. Girija
Dr.
Raman.
Girija, maybe we can continue to talk about your experience with post-herpetic neuralgia later. But right now, considering the time, any other question or comment? Dr. Kale, you wanted to say something.
Yes, intraosseous block. That is the best treatment available.
Sorry,
And it can be easily tried. Intercostal nerve block.
Yes.
Yes, that as a surgeon we will do that.
Yes.
I am a surgeon by profession, so I would like that, and that gives results. And Dr. Rajkumar, can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
So you said something in 2019, WHO had said gabapentin has to be removed. Something like that. I didn't get it clearly.
The WHO brought out the latest cancer pain guidelines were brought out in 2019. If you will Google in our Pallium India website for cancer pain guidelines, you will find it. Arun, let us remember to send that link to everybody. So in that guidelines, they have excluded gabapentinoids. Gabapentinoids include gabapentin and its analogs like pregabalin, saying that the companies which did the studies falsified evidence. It is clearly stated. So the global popularity of gabapentinoids are based on falsified evidence. I will send you the link. That doesn't mean that gabapentin and pregabalin are completely useless. But remember one thing, what is happening in this world, that when expensive medicines are brought in, the industry comes and tells you about it. No, I can bet you, no medical representative has come and talked to you about amitriptyline.
No.
They come to you with samples of gabapentin and pregabalin. And that's because they are expensive. So sometimes we end up prescribing needlessly expensive medicines. One question that was asked in the chat box is indication for intravenous paracetamol. Doctor, oral paracetamol has excellent bioavailability. Again, it is industry sponsored. The only indication for parenteral paracetamol is when the patient cannot take orally. If the patient can take orally, only a tiny percentage of people get gastritis with paracetamol. You can avoid it with proton pump inhibitors if necessary. Even if the patient is not eating, use oral paracetamol. Reserve intravenous paracetamol for those patients who cannot take it orally, like people following a laparoscopy. Dr. Kale, I'll send everybody the link to the WHO guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody, any other question or comments? Arun, please monitor the chat box. My screen has blanked, I can't see.
Oh, okay, sir.
And if there are questions in the chat box, please repeat them.
Sir, can I ask one question?
Yes, who is asking the question?
I'm Shilpa, sir.
Yes, Dr. Shilpa.
Sir, I want to ask that in our Indian culture and especially our grandparents and their generation, it is like a value to be able to endure pain. So even if they are suffering, they won't come out and tell it. And especially in the elderly, they feel that they are not a earning member. So, and pain is like a they have adapted it and accepted it like as a pain will be part of their life now. So, so how to address that? When
Shilpa,
we can-
thank you for asking the question. This is very important because in our country, a lot of people live with pain because pain, they don't know that pain can be relieved. They feel they have no right for pain relief. They feel pain is given by God, we have to bear it. But Shilpa, at some point of time, when your grandmother is alone, go and sit with her and ask her, Nani, what is it like? What is it like to live with this pain? How do you feel? What does it make you feel? And then she may cry and she may tell you, Shilpa Beti, I wish I were dead. She may not admit this in public. She feels she has to put up a front. She has to bear the pain and live it. But if it is severe enough and long enough, people feel very strongly about it. Most of the time they don't talk about it because we are not there to listen. Just do not talk, listen, and they will tell you how they actually feel about it. And Shilpa, and then if you have a grandmother at home who is in pain, we should talk about how to treat that pain properly. Not necessarily in this public forum, but maybe we can talk about it if that's a real problem in your case. And to everyone here, this is one thing that I will remind you. When senior citizens are in pain, they generally are unable to express it. They are not taken seriously. Young people also believe, old age. Yeah, correct. And they dismiss it. Like they bear pain unnecessarily. We can make life livable for them. And I'll also tell Dr. Anita also, unfortunately, we do not treat children's pain. We love children, but we are very cruel to them. We may treat the pain of adults, but we are not sure how safe analgesics are. So we allow children to live in pain. Shilpa, have I answered your question? And I'm saying that if you want to discuss this further, we can have a personal conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sure, sir.
Sir, one more question from Dr. Sumit Kumar.
Yes, Dr. Yes, sir.
How often we need to give local block?
So, sorry, what's the doctor's name? Sumit?
Sumit Kumar, sir.
Dr. Sumit, I'm glad you asked the question. You should have clarified. I should have clarified this. What is the purpose of giving a local anesthetic? After all, a local anesthetic is only temporary. Even if you give the modern, long-acting analgesics, okay, they act well for 8 hours and then some action for another 8 hours and so on. What we achieve is we break the cycle. Remember the picture that I showed? Pain causes sensitization and recruitment of nociceptors. Pain causes recruitment of adjacent spinal segments. Pain causes sensitization of the dorsal horn cell and further aggravation of pain. When you give a local block, all these things are stopped. That is the advantage of a local anesthetic block. And when I recommended intercostal block in postherpetic neuralgia, it is only for that purpose of stopping that cycle of pain so that the nervous system has the ability to regenerate, to revive. But local blocks alone will not be enough. Most of the time, you combine it with drugs like tricyclics, amitriptyline, etc. Those to be built up. So that's how this combination works. Usually, local anesthetic blocks are meant as part of multimodal treatment along with other things like analgesics. So anesthetics, I mean, I am an anesthetist too. Generally, people say we are needle happy. We shouldn't be doing only local anesthetic blocks. Multimodal treatment is the key. Have I answered your question, Dr. Somit?
Kiran, ഒരു മൂന്ന് കഷ്ണം കൂടെ തരുമോ മോനെ?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I got clarity, sir.
Thanks.
Sir, one more question from Dr. Sonam.
Yes.
Any role of steroids in combination with acyclovir during the active phase of herpes zoster? Will it have any effect on the post-hepatic neuralgia?
Dr. Sonam, acyclovir has been shown to reduce the severity of herpes zoster. So what were the questions? I was going on delivering a speech. Then I didn't know that I was not audible.
Sir, the last question was regarding...
What was that question again?
Any role of steroids in combination with acyclovir during the...
So about steroids, yes, as acyclovir certainly, steroids possibly. Both acyclovir is known to reduce the incidence of post-hepatic neuralgia, and by reducing the inflammation in the nerve, possibly steroids are also likely to help. What was the next question?
Veena ma'am? Veena ma'am, you are muted, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Sir, I wanted to know how can we help patients with Buerger's disease, those with the peripheral vascular disease, how can we help their pain?
Okay, madam, thank you. A very real problem, difficult problem. People with ischemic issues, peripheral vascular disease.
Sir.
The various methods are possible. Usually they are ignored. Nobody wants them. You treat them and they do not get relief. They will be rejected. And very often they are poor, and it's a big issue. So both treatment. Remember that the pain is both nociceptive and neuropathic. Analgesia must be a combination with the ladder, and the next 2 sessions you are going to learn about how to use the ladder. Generally, we are reluctant to use long-term opioids in non-cancer pain, but peripheral vascular disease can cause such intense pain that must be, we must consider opioids. They by themselves may not work, but one of the things that we'll be talking to you about the use of methadone, a step 3 opioid that may be helpful. Dr. Veena, everybody gets a Doppler study now. If a major vessel is blocked, understandably, the patient will have vascular surgery. But if it is small vessel disease, and if the blood flow in the foot is more than 10% of normal, the patient will benefit from a chemical sympathectomy, that is lumbar sympathetic neurolytic block. If you go to an anesthetist who is familiar with blocks, they may be able to put a needle in L2 space on the lumbar sympathetic plexus and use a neurolytic drug like phenol or alcohol, and that generally improves the collateral circulation, and very often limb can be salvaged. So one, treatment for both nociceptive and neuropathic pain. 2, attempts at improving blood flow. Most of the time, the medicines that are usually given are useless. But this is something that can help. Thank you for the question. I am sorry that I have exceeded time so much, and I apologize for the technical glitches today. Was there any other question pending, or can we close?
So Dr. Rankisina has also asked a question.
Yes.
Gabapentin 300 mg is given. Is it at pain is at the right stomach, right side of the stomach, which radiates from navel to spine? Is this pain mechanism similar to backache? Won't NSAIDs like diclofenac or etoroxovic be better than paracetamol?
You are talking about the patient with post-herpetic neuralgia.
Continue data. Doctor jo data.
Dr. Rangina?
It was the question about the patient with post-herpetic neuralgia. Was it from Dr. Anita?
Sir, it's regarding the patient story only, sir.
Okay. In post-herpetic neuralgia, one, there is no inflammation. There was inflammation at the time of acute herpes zoster. Therefore, NSAIDs are unlikely to be helpful. Steroids and NSAIDs are unlikely to be helpful. What will help most is either stepping up the gabapentin to a higher dose, or better still, what I would recommend is keep the gabapentin on, bring in amitriptyline, gradually build the dose up. A combination of an anticonvulsant can still be used. Anticonvulsants are used in neuropathic pains, and while things like post-herpetic neuralgia generally respond to tricyclics like amitriptyline more, gabapentin also may help. If the patient came to me with 300 milligram gabapentin BD, I would keep it there. I would tend to increase the start amitriptyline. Start with 10 milligrams. After 3 days, increase it to 25. Wait for a week. Increase it to 50 if necessary, and go up like that. Unfortunately, it may cause drowsiness, in which case, then I'll reduce the dose of one and try to increase the dose of the other. NSAIDs will not help in post-herpetic neuralgia. It may help in acute herpes zoster. Raju, post-herpetic neuralgia, tricyclics are first line. Drugs like carbamazepine are second line. If it was a trigeminal neuralgia, I would have said carbamazepine is first line and vice versa. But in post-herpetic neuralgia, tricyclics are more likely to help. Carbamazepine is permissible. You will be dealing with the analgesics in the subsequent sessions. So this today was only the introduction and pain mechanisms.